Do-it-yourselfers. Today I'm going to share with you how to make something that's a little bit different. I'm going to be sharing how to make a fermented ketchup. You can customize it however you like. So if you're following some sort of keto, low-carb diet, you can use any type of sweetener that you like, something like erythritol, stevia, something like that. This recipe, though, is based on the recipe of a friend of mine, Haley Rizek. I hope I said that correctly because I have known Haley for over a decade now. When we were baby bloggers, she helped me make a lot of good decisions and steer away from some bad ones. So yeah, somebody that I've kept in touch with over the years. And this is one of her books. She has several of them, but this one is called Fermented Foods at Every Meal. And in this book, she gives a lot of ideas how you can add probiotics to your foods. And one of my favorites was by fermenting sauces. And the great thing about making a fermented sauce, not only does it add the beneficial probiotics to it, but it makes it so that your sauces will last for months at a time. I've tried this with a lot of different things now over the years, and it's really great because a lot of these sauces, you're spending a lot of time making them if you want to make homemade. And one of the reasons you might not do that is because, oh, I have to make this every week or it's going to go bad. So when you ferment it, you can make bigger batches and it will keep for several months. And in fact, I had a bottle of homemade fermented ketchup that I had made years ago, and it got stuck in the back of my fridge. And I'd gone through several deep cleanings of the fridge, but I just kept putting it aside. And I checked on it years later when I finally cleared it out just in case. But I looked at that, I smelled it. Even years later, that fermented ketchup looked like it was fine. And it probably was, but I did end up tossing it. It's really easy. It seems like it would be something really complicated, but it's not. I've done this with aioli. I'm going to try in this week to make some homemade barbecue sauce and see what happens when I ferment it. Because it will change the flavor a little bit. My son really loves aioli, and when we make it, he doesn't generally finish the whole batch. I did try fermenting it for him once, and it was okay. He didn't like it as much. It made the flavor a bit milder. Maybe if I had added more garlic, maybe a little bit more lemon juice, who knows. It's something to experiment with, but it did keep for a very, very, very long time. So if you're looking to extend the shelf life of your homemade products, this is the way to go. I'm talking food here, not for your cosmetics, and that will go into another day with preservatives. But I am not going to be making her exact recipe for fermented ketchup today, although it is on my blog and a lot of people have really liked it and told me that. I want to experiment a little bit because her homemade ketchup has some clove and some allspice, and my husband absolutely despises cloves. So I made it. I didn't think I was going to like it, to be honest, because I'm not a big fan of cloves myself, but it was actually really, really good. But today I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm experimenting a little bit. I'm trying to get it to more that classic family-friendly version, something more like Heinz or something you're more accustomed to. So the other is more of a Christmassy flavor. Maybe you can have your Christmas ketchup, and I'm going to try to see if I can approximate the Heinz one. So I am substituting her cloves and allspice, and I am going to be adding a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder, a little bit of homemade celery powder, and just a tiny bit of Dijon mustard. You can use some mustard powder if you have it. I'm only going to be making a half batch today. I am going to be using some tomato paste. Now, lately I have not been growing my own garden. Maybe I will try again next year. But as many of you know, I tried a mostly carnivore diet for several years. I am just now starting to reintroduce some more foods in, and I will get into that more in another post, another video. But while I was doing that, I was not growing my own garden because I just didn't know what I was going to be doing with all those vegetables. But in the past, I've made my own tomato paste. This time I'm using a commercial one that I found that is organic and it's free of all kinds of other stuff. A lot of times they will add sugars and, you know, just other herbs and spices. This is just a clean tomato paste. I am going to be adding some whey. This is what we're going to be using to ferment it. What I did is last night I took some milk kefir and I strained it through a cloth, and the whey that came out on the bottom is what I'm going to be using for this. Now you can also buy something like burrata mozzarella cheese and use that, the liquid whey. But if you're vegan, you can also use something like the brine from making sauerkraut or something like that, and that works perfectly for this. Along with the whey, I have some maple syrup. You can use, as I said, any sort of sweetener. I've normally used honey in the past, but I did muscle testing with a kinesiologist, and I test horribly for honey. And interestingly enough, I thought I was going to test poorly for tomatoes, but I do well with those. This is some apple cider vinegar. Well, I do make my own apple cider vinegar. In a recipe like this, I like to use a store-bought one because it is a bit more acidic, and for here, I don't want to water down my ketchup, needing to add a lot. So I really want a high acidity vinegar here. Now you can use whatever vinegar you like. I'm using apple cider vinegar. I have some salt. Use whatever salt you prefer. My celery salt, my garlic powder, my onion powder, and I'm using just the tiniest little bit of Dijon mustard. I'll be adding these into taste little by little as I go probably, but I'm just really excited to try this out and try out a new version. Now first I'm just going to show you how to mix this all up, and then after I get it all mixed, we are going to ferment it for several days. So your ketchup will not be ready. You can taste some, you can use some, but it won't be fully fermented for a couple of days. And you know, depending on the weather, it's starting to get cooler here, but it's not cold yet. You know, 2 days, 3 days, we shall see. Let's get to it. You can mix your ingredients in a bowl. Here I'm using a mini food processor. Add your tomato paste. Then we're going to add in some of the whey. We'll save some to float some on top later on. Here's my maple syrup and my apple cider vinegar, and I'm just going to slowly incorporate some of these things in before adding in my salt and my other spices. Here I'm adding in the celery powder. I'm also adding the Dijon mustard, a little bit of garlic, and onion powder. I'm just adding a little bit now because I want to tweak the recipe as I go. I'm going to blend it all together with my mini food processor. Here I've given myself a little bit of Heinz so that I can compare with mine as I go. Okay, I have the main recipe that I was going to try made up. Now one thing I'm noticing is mine is grainier in texture. It would probably need to be filtered more to be exactly like this. I'm also noticing that theirs is darker in color, which makes me think that maybe adding a little bit of molasses or a dark sugar to this. Sadly, we can't really take a look at their ingredients to know what is in here because they just have a very generic spices to it, with a little bit of a disclaimer that behind that it does have celery, which is why I wanted to add some because I knew celery was in it. So I added a little bit of my homemade celery powder. I think with all of these spices, you need to be very careful and just add just the tiniest little bit. I'm also noticing that theirs is a lot sweeter. So I think what I'm going to try to do is maybe add a little bit of molasses that I bought to make a homemade barbecue sauce. That should add a little bit of color to it. It should add a little bit of depth of flavor. And at this point, you know, eventually I will come up with a more precise recipe for you. So I'm going to try adding a few more things, and I'm going to let you know what I think we can do to get the exact type of flavor that I'm looking for. Because the Heinz ketchup was a lot tangier than mine, I ended up adding more vinegar to it. Okay, I have eaten more ketchup than I've had in years just trying to get this right. I think overall it was really close. At first I thought I was going to have to add some cloves or allspice or something like that to it, but in the end I didn't. I think what it really needed was a bit more vinegar. So I added quite a bit extra vinegar. Now, the texture is a little bit different on theirs. It's more gel-like. Maybe if I were to cook this down again and then really, really strain it, we could probably get it nice and thick and smooth like theirs, if that's a big deal to you. Now, we added the whey in from the beginning because I wanted to ferment this. If you are going to try to cook this down, you're going to want to do that before you add the whey to ferment it. So because I already added it, I'm not going to try with this batch, but maybe in the next one I will cook it down and just get it exactly how I want it before I add the whey in. And you're going to want to make it a little bit thicker because you do add quite a bit of whey, so that does add some liquid to it. But overall, I do think ours was a bit too thick, so adding more vinegar was not a problem. It's going to depend on the tomato paste that you use to begin with. And, probably how smooth it is will also depend on the tomato paste that you're using. I might have gone overboard a little bit on the molasses, but it did give it that characteristic color. You can see that the color of my ketchup and the Heinz ketchup are a lot more similar now. But I think next time I might try to add like a little bit of vanilla or, a dark sugar to it. And theirs is definitely sweeter than mine still. It was mostly tangier, so the big difference was adding more vinegar. I did add some more salt, and I did add a little bit more maple syrup. But to me, one of the reasons that you make your own ketchup or your own thing, not only can you control the quality of the ingredients, but you can also control how much sugar there is in it and the flavor of it. And I don't need it to be as sweet as the original. But of course, if you're really trying to get it as exact to their flavor as you can, then you're going to want to experiment with that and add more sugar, add more other things. But I was taking a look at their ingredients list again because I do notice that theirs is more gel-like, but again, I think that if we were to cook this down and then strain it, we could probably get really close to the texture. But I noticed that what they have is tomatoes, sugar. They have an alcohol vinegar, which I'm going to guess is a distilled vinegar. So that could change the flavor a bit. If you want to try using different type of vinegar, you can do that. They have salt and spices, which includes celery. So that's why I added the celery salt. And then there is onion and garlic in powdered. Sorry, this is, I'm in Spain, so I'm reading the Spanish version of the label, and it doesn't say anything else. So I think we are very close with that. And I am going to guess that this doesn't seem like it has any preservatives or anything. So I'm not sure if they are preserving this with the vinegar, that they are keeping it quite thick to reduce the liquid amount into it, and also getting the pH as low as they can by adding the vinegar. That could be what they're doing to preserve it, or maybe they're hidden preservatives. I'm not quite sure. But in our case, we'll have the combination of the whey, we're going to be fermenting it right now, and also of the vinegar itself. There's a lot of things that affect how long something can keep. In this sort of recipe, the less water you have, the more sugar, the more vinegar, the lower pH. All of these things can contribute to it having a longer shelf life. All right, that's about it. What I'm going to do now is I am going to start the fermenting process. This will last 2 to 3 days. Right now it's starting to get cooler. We're in fall. and I'll probably be shooting for around 3 days. Maybe if it's hot where you are, summer, you can do this in 2. What I'm going to do is use a clean jar. I like to run these through the dishwasher so it kills all microbes. You can also, before you use it, add some boiling water to it. You want it to be as clean and microbe free as possible when you're doing ferments. And then we're going to be adding the ketchup here, and I'm going to be covering it with a cloth, and I will use a rubber band over it to hold it in place. This will allow air circulation somewhat. This is for the ferment so that it can grow well, and it keeps out bugs and dust and whatever we don't want in here. So I'm going to show you how I am going to bottle that up for now, and we'll be checking on it in a few days, and I'll show you what I have for my final ketchup. Here, the ketchup has been fermenting for 3 days. It's still nice and thick, and it's tangier. So now it's really close to that Heinz flavor. I think that the celery powder was perfect for getting it. I didn't need any other spices. If you liked this recipe, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this one. Until next time, guys.